On this episode of Robe Chats, the podcast,
we are definitely in a job where people have to work and play well with others.
Lean into the things that make you eccentric.
It's like once you're in the family, you're kind of in the family.
lighting designers ML Geiger and Jane Cox. Welcome once again to Robe Chats, the podcast. My name is Brian Matthews. And as you can see, we are broadcasting today and recording at the USITT Expo here in Columbus, Ohio. And we are very happy today to be joined by two acclaimed lighting designers. We have ML Geiger and Jane Cox. ML and Jane, thank you very much for taking the time to join with us.
Oh, you're so welcome, Brian. Glad
Good
to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. One of the things that we like to start with here is we basically like to start with how people got their start into this industry. There's so many different ways that people kind of find their way into, lighting or production or video and stuff like that. So just kind of give our listeners and our viewers, how is it that you got started in this industry? And ML, we'll start with you here. How did you get your start?
Well, my mother was teaching in a summer school, summer theater program, and I was 7, and she needed to find something to do with me, and I could read, so she put me in it. So I started acting when I was 7, so I blame her. But then I wanted to be a director. So all through high school I did, and junior high and stuff, I did theater. And I wanted to be a director when I went to college. But I was required to take a design class, or like a design tech class. And I realized that lighting was sort of the same experience as directing, in the sense of you're thinking about the whole thing. And I try not to hit the microphone. You're thinking about the whole experience of the audience, and you're looking at the whole experience of the evening. And I realized at some point in college that I really didn't have instincts about how to help actors get better. So this was great. And then I went to graduate school. I worked for a little while, for 3 years, and then I started freelancing my second year out of school, doing some stuff around Boston. And then I realized I couldn't get better on my own, so I went to graduate school, and then that was that.
And you went to Yale School of...
I did go to Yale, yes.
Yale. How was being here at USIT, it's got the educational component to it. Kind of, what was the Yale program like for you when you were coming up
Jennifer
through
Tipton
design?
was our teacher, and I started her second year, so I was her second class that she chose. And I was the first woman that had come through in a while, so there was that. But it's a lot of reading plays, talking about plays, and then thinking about how to structure an experience and how to have enough craft to be able to figure out what you want to do, be able to translate an idea into light, right, and then be able to craft that out of the space. So, that's it's probably the gist of what I'm doing as a teacher also. But Jennifer, then I worked for her for a year after school, and what she's done is take people on for sort of the 4th year after graduate school.
Yes.
So, am I answering that?
You did. It was a great answer. and Jane, I know that you were originally from Ireland.
That's
right. How
right.
did you find your way into this industry?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was interested in all of the arts and had trouble making choices between them. Ballet was my 2.5. I started with ballet, but then when I was about 13, they were like, if you want to do ballet more, you have to do it every day. And I was like, but what about writing and music and all the other things I like to do? I went to college as a music major, actually. I was a flute player.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
And I did not find, with no shade to classical musicians, but I did not find the classical musician social scene entirely to my liking. And the theater students on campus, I had not really been involved in theater up to that point, but I went to college in London, and the theater students were the most eccentric group of students on campus, and I was drawn to that, but I didn't really have a thing to do in theater. So I can't remember what the first thing I did was. I ran the light board for a musical called Oh, What a Lovely War. That's what I did. And immediately fell in love with that, and realized and I still feel this way, that lighting and music are actually the same thing. Lighting is just a visual equivalent of music.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be in the room with the theater kids, but I needed something to do that was useful, and nobody knew how to do lighting or sound. So I was like, well, I'm going to do that, and then I can be in the room and do it. And then over time, I realized that if you go into lighting, you get to do all the things. So I get to do the opera, I get to do the music, I get to do the dance, I get to do the theater, the writing, like all the arts that I was interested in my whole life.
Yeah.
I get to do them all still. So I'm so grateful for that as a lighting career.
For those who may be listening or watching and who weren't in the theater, I love the fact that you talked about the theater kids, because I was a theater kid. And there is a distinct camaraderie that takes place in the theater department where, people who feel like they don't maybe fit in somewhere else have all kind of found their way together into the theater. And that makes it so beautiful. Kind of talk a little bit about that camaraderie that exists with theater kids, both from your side of being a growing up as a a student in theater, but then also as an educator. We'll get to that part, but you can see those sort of interactions taking place in your departments. Talk a bit about that camaraderie that exists with the theater kids.
Well, I was one of the co-presidents of our drama organization in
you?
high school. Oh, yes. and I might have been something in the drama organization in college also.
Fantastic.
I can't remember. But I was one of those people that showed up, and nobody was interested in lighting in my college. It was a small liberal arts program and a big deal kind of academic PhD program. So the undergrads got to do a ton of work, and it was a small space. So they grabbed me and put me on a ladder. And then because it was fun, I kept doing it and working in the office, and there's, always someone around. If you're a sort of compulsive workaholic, which I think I can admit I am, lighting was perfect because you could sort of control a lot of things, but you don't have to be in front of everybody all the time.
I want to stand up for theater kids though and be like, I don't think it's like that they can't fit in other places. I actually think theater kids are where it's at. I think theater kids are interested in, they're willing to step outside of the cultural norms in terms of gender, community, and frankly, you have to know if you go into theater that you're not going to fit in a truly capitalist society. You have to know that. It's not a money-making venture. So I feel like it's a group of people who are willing to express their interests in what they really believe. I will stand up for the theater kids.
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, in a way, the weirder the play, the better, or the more like performance arty the play, the sort of more interested I am in trying to sort a story out through that, or to find a through line that can make sense for an audience out of that. So, and we had better parties. And the guys would dance.
And the guys would dance. Exactly. Okay, thank you. That's really a wonderful thing you bring up. I think male theater kids are a delight, and it's hard for young men in the world to be who they are, and theater actually offers a space for that. And I think as a woman who loves men, theater is always like a delightful place for men to just be who they are.
Exactly. And to talk about a lot of different things that are happening in the world and are about interpersonal relationships or about politics, and about how we can relate them to kind of what we think day to day. So
let's touch a little bit more on the education side, and then we'll get into both of your works as a lighting designer. ML, you're with the NYU Tisch School of the Arts, head of the lighting department, and Jane, you're with Princeton University, the program music and theater there as well. Kind of since we're again here at USITT, and we're working with our Robe NRG students, our next Robe generation. Talk a little bit about your programs, about what they offer, kind of how they're structured, and what they kind of lead people on the path to as they grow as designers.
I think we wonderfully have the sort of absolutely opposite end of the spectrum
We
in
do.
the program. And I will say I'm a graduate of the program that ML teaches in, and I had a wonderful experience at Tisch School of the Arts getting my MFA. But now I run a program that's actually for non-majors. So the Princeton Theater program, we work with like microbiologists and economists and historians and kids who are going to go out and run major corporations and
Or the State Department, right?
show them that theater is a lens through which they can explore their big ideas and look at the world. So it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum to what ML is doing.
But also it teaches people how to work and play well with others, and how to work towards a common goal, and how to collaborate, and how to recognize that something we can all make together is better than anything we would make on our own. So I love that I've always loved that about it. And that best idea wins in the most productive version of what we do.
Yeah.
When Jane was a student in our program, we're in an old hat factory, and we have these old spaces. Our big space was an 18-foot high grid in an old banqueting hall on the Lower East Side. And the other space in that room is a 40 by 60 foot rectangle that's 11 feet high. And we have these two other spaces that we use for year 2 shows that are also tiny. But in the last few years, we have built this huge building that has 2 spaces for our year 3 shows now that are 24 feet high. So we can use modern equipment in a way for the first time. Because, before the moving lights are like the size of a toddler, and you can't put it in an 11-foot ceiling and not have it hit the 6'4" guys on the head.
Right.
So it's been great to have, it's so exciting now to have the ability to utilize all this moving equipment that we kind of could use in a small way, but we couldn't really engage it in as full a way as we can now. So it's made a big change to our program to think about how does digital stuff work? How do we structure things differently when it's not Licos and Fresnels, or
How do you
Bars?
work newer technologies into your programs, or is there a focus on, because everybody can, a Source 4 is an industry standard across many theaters, and do you also do you try to introduce different sort of technologies across multiple spectrums, whether it be projection or lighting or video or stuff like that? Are you
Well,
able
the
to-
building's only been open for a year, so we're kind of in the middle of figuring that out. So we got, and Justin Townsend is our chair, so he's been very helpful in helping us acquire some new equipment, because otherwise, we're just buying more Licos, and that's not that helpful. So I feel like we're figuring out how to really engage newer technology in class, but the part where we figure out how to analyze a play and how to analyze a space and figure out what lights to put where, that doesn't change even with the new stuff. So it's a matter of sorting out what computer skills the graduates are going to need coming out, because I'm sort of a generation older than Jane, so I don't draft in the computer at all. I would much rather, there's the sabbatical when I had a chance to go to learn Vectorworks, I went to Paris and painted instead. So that was much more thrilling. And what are you guys doing about that?
Well, my Princeton students are spoiled, and they have no idea. We got these incredible new spaces at Princeton in 2017. They built the Lewis Center for the Arts.
Oh.
And at the time, I was teaching part-time there, and they asked me, what would you want in a lighting rig? And I gave them, the way you do as a theater designer, I gave them this enormous shop order. And then they came back and they said, okay, you can have it. And I had anticipated, the normal process where I end up with about a third of what I put on the list, and we got it all. So
Oh my God.
our black
Every
box,
theater professional listening is going to be very jealous of you right now.
and my students don't even know.
No, they
but
don't,
we're
actually.
so blessed. We have this beautiful black box. We have 80 moving lights in it.
Oh, wow.
And they said, we want to make a flexible space where you can move the seats around. I have been the lighting designer in the flexible space, and I'm like, it's not flexible if you have to refocus all the lights every time you move the seats. So we have a rig where you can push a button on the Crestron system on the wall and have front light, side light, backlight in any seating configuration.
Oh my.
It's amazing. And the students can go in there, and we have this amazing Matt Pilsner is our lighting and stage supervisor. It will show them how to use our light board, and our students get the opportunity to go in there and write light cues with these 80 moving lights.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
they're digital natives. Many of them are computer science majors and engineers, so it comes naturally to them to work with the equipment, and they can have a go on a pretty technological scale. So yeah.
Is that a conscious effort on Princeton's part to, as part of that program, include those who aren't necessarily majoring in it, to try to foster the arts once they leave and become professionals? Because, especially today, it seems like the arts is under attack a little bit with funding being cut and things of that nature. Is it a cognizant hope of Princeton that those people will develop a love of theater and opera and dance, and then as they go out and become successful in the corporate world, maybe fund or help keep it alive, basically?
Yeah, I feel like a lot, yes. And the students have really driven a lot of the design and technology. I think it maybe took the university a little bit by surprise that actually our design and tech, we have more students trying to do design and technology at Princeton than we do trying to perform, which is unusual.
Oh, interesting. And that was not the case.
Because the
25
student
years
is
ago.
a fairly STEMmy
Yeah.
school, and actually that's the student's way into creativity is through the design fields. So yes, the university is trying to foster a love of the arts, but actually the students mostly bring it with them, and they're very happy to find that they don't have to stop doing the arts because they're majoring in computer science. So a lot of it has been student driven, and Princeton's really great about paying attention to what the students want.
Very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit now about your work as lighting designers, because you're both very successful at what you do. You're both acclaimed, award-winning designers. And I know that you both also work across multiple spectrums, from music and opera and dance. Let's just talk a little bit about your design process. I know you said you don't like to draft, or well, how do you start your?
Did you just say that on a podcast that you don't like to draft?
No, I love
She
to
did.
draft.
ML did not
I
say
actually
that.
do love to draft.
You
I
don't
just
like-
don't draft in the computer.
You don't draft on the computer,
Right.
How does your design process begin for you? From when I assume it's different from opera, dance, theater. So, but in general, how do you start your design process?
I mean, in some ways, it's more different for me, depending on the collaborators and depending on the piece. But I still start with either listening to the music or reading the play and trying to understand the structure of the play or the event that's happening. And then I think about how I want to reveal that event. And then what's the scale of the production that we're working on. And I had come back in January, a production of Sleeping Beauty that Christopher Wheeldon choreographed, that I lit in 2010, came back
Wow.
to the Royal Danish Ballet, and we had been in their old stage, and now with maybe 10 VLs. And now we're in the Opera House, in the brand new, now 20-year-old Opera House, which is fancy, much bigger, and all a moving light rig. So they kept describing it as a remount, but finally the lighting guy fortunately said, it's not really a remount. This is a complete redo, because it's, the whole rig is completely different.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I did a play with the Tent Theater, which is Tim Sanford's retirement project, but a new Len Jenkin play in a space that is smaller than this booth, with maybe 45 units. So it was a good contrast,
Yeah.
and it was all within 4 weeks. So
I love that.
so
you
it
go
was
from
great
the obscene, beautiful, big theater to the small,
Right.
more experimental type theater.
right, exactly.
Does that change your process, or is it still the same process, just on a different scale?
I think it's the same process, but just on a different scale. I still need to understand the nature of the event, and then what I want to make out of the event, or what we, Pluriel, want to make out of the event.
Right.
So, do you find?
Yes, yes. And I think I'm always interested in what the, like, why are we doing this project? What's the event? Who's it for? Who's the audience likely
Right.
to be? I think about that a lot. I just got off a plane from LA Opera, and in terms of scale, I was thinking while I was there, it's such a gift to work with like a large crew of human beings who are at the top of their game. Like their
Yes.
head electrician, their programmer, their lighting associate, like everyone on the team is really experienced and really at the top of their game and really professional. And that's the joy, I think, when you get to work on a high level. For me, it's really about getting to work with those technicians and programmers and other artists that are really at a high level. It's really fun.
When you're working with such a big creative team, for young designers who may be listening or watching, how do you build that relationship with like a set designer and a director and a costume designer? Like, how does the whole team system work when you're dealing with, so many people who have accomplished a whole lot? And I assume, everybody sort of has their own sort of, I don't want to say ego, but everybody sort of has their own idea of what will work best. When you're all in that collaborative room, how does the lighting designer fit into all of that?
I mean, it depends on the room, but
Yeah.
in the utopian version, I think of it as we're just a group of people who are about to put on a project together, and ideally the first few conversations are just a group of people talking about the event and the project and what is it that we're trying to do, and later we split off into our own lanes of, don't put that border there. I can't get my backlight shot. That happens sort of later in the process, so that you've developed a kind of creative, personal, human relationship first. I think that's crucial. And oh my God, okay, for young designers, go to rehearsal. The thing that I find my young designers struggle with the most is making time to go to rehearsal. But if you don't have that relationship and understanding of the performance and how the director works in that room, you have no business walking into a tech rehearsal and telling people where to look. So that's my greatest collaborative advice for young designers, is get into that rehearsal room as much as you can.
Agreed. And if you have a first meeting in the afternoon, sometimes we'll have some kind of first meeting during the day, and then let's all go to dinner. Because the more you can kind of get to know people as humans, as opposed to in their lane, in their role or whatever, the kind of looser it all gets. And also when the set designer and director are working, I really, really want to be there. I don't have to talk necessarily, but I want to see what they're planning. And then we can talk through how to make that happen and how to improve on that. Or how to make, if we leave a slot here, then maybe we can get some light in here for this moment or something like that. There's one other thing. The graduate students also have trouble getting into rehearsal. And the more you can sit in rehearsal, the more, and even if you're there for it's really great to be there for the read through. It's really great to be there in the beginning to kind of see how they are all, gelling.
Right.
And then, come hang around afterwards before you focus. And when you're doing a show in a regional theater, for example, you get flown in the day before to watch it run through, and then you just are kind of leaping in. Right. And that it would be better if we could come earlier so that we're hanging around for a bit and everybody gets to, makes people relax. When they get to know you, then they're not so afraid of talking.
Well, a little bit more on that, depending upon your technical level, there's also the personal level. Just speak a little bit about the importance of not necessarily being, the best lighting designer or programmer in the room, but like how you carry yourself as a person, right? For young technical theater students who might be looking to get into this professionally, talk a little bit about the necessity to carry yourself in a way that people will want to work with you again and again. The importance of that aspect of the business.
We are definitely in a job where people have to work and play well with others.
They have to do what?
Work and play well with others.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And it's more fun that way anyway. But I remember doing summer stock at some point. We were talking was talking to somebody I was doing something where the programmer was having trouble with something, and they said, "Oh, you're being so patient." And I was like, there was that time in summer stock when I had a 15-year-old board operator that I snapped at once, even though I don't snap for the most part, and I made him cry, and I'm like, "Really? Is this so? We are doing summer stock in the woods in a barn. Do we really? That is not the way to be." So. Also, it's great being at USITT because you run into, I don't know about you, Jane, but I run into like every possible phase of my life.
Yes.
Like everybody I ever met,
Yep.
or everybody that I ever interviewed, or that was an assistant, or that was an intern, or that was a whatever.
Or teachers. I just
Or
ran
other-
into Sabrina Hamilton, who
Oh.
taught me once upon a
Oh my
time.
God. And I did Babu Mind stuff with Sabrina
I know
Hamilton
you
these
did.
many years ago. So you run into everybody. Everybody always turns up. So just be nice.
Yeah.
It's just better.
Just be nice. That's great. Yes, being kind is so important. I was just thinking while you were talking, my undergraduate lighting professor, I ended up in the States because I spent a year at UMass Amherst, and I had an undergraduate lighting professor called Penny Remsen, who also taught Justin Townsend, who also taught Ben Stanton, who also taught Tracy Kleiner. There's a whole string of successful lighting designers that came out of that program.
Yeah.
And Penny's an extraordinary person and an amazing teacher. But the thing she really focused on was, how did you behave? And I remember her saying to me things like, "Jane, don't giggle. You're a woman in this field. They won't take you seriously. You can't giggle." I don't think I've ever really stopped giggling, but she would be just like on you. She was not afraid to be like, "Stand up straight, smile, look them in the eyes."
Right, exactly.
And it seems that her strategy of sort of teaching behavior as well as lighting was very effective for her student body.
Well, that's a really good segue, because I wanted to say congratulations on your Tony win.
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
Lighting design for Appropriate.
Thank you.
But one of the things that I found very interesting about that was that it was I think it said it was the first all-female lighting crew to win a Tony.
I don't have proof of this, which is why I haven't sort of published it anywhere. Mia Roy is the person who would know that, but to the best of my knowledge, which is reasonably extensive on the subject, we're the first all-female team with a female head electrician, which is the rarest piece. So it was Mia, who mostly knew, female programmer, female designer, and a female associate. So obviously there's a lot of other people on the team, but those four roles filled by women, and a mostly female crew, which is at the Helen Hayes in New York, which is a Broadway theater.
Are you seeing in your programs, we talked a little bit about this off camera, are you seeing more women coming through the design programs, or is it still something that needs a focused sort of effort to bring?
I'm jumping on that one.
Yeah, go.
I don't know if there was ever a shortage of women trying to go into lighting. I think the issue was getting employment. And for me, the thing that really opened my eyes was actually my assistants and watching them grow. So I have been blessed to have a number of wonderful assistants over the years, some of whom now have their own Tony Awards. And I watched as the young men would take the next step in their career and the young women wouldn't. And from my perspective of having worked with them, there was not a gap in kind of experience or talent, so that started to be frustrating to me. And at that point I stopped hiring men. No shade to the many incredible men. I love so many men I work with in the business, but I just was like, women need me more. And was another part to that thought. Oh, okay. So, and then I reached a moment in my career where I had knew that, when they're hiring for a Broadway show, they go through the list of usual suspects. And then if none of the usual suspects are available, or at least this is how it used to be. It might have changed in some good ways since COVID, but they would go through the list of the usual suspects. And then if the usual suspects were not available, they might do some cold interviews. And there was a moment in my career where there were men who were younger than me with less experience, and I knew that they had less kind of warmth around them in the field, so they also had not as successfully built relationships, who were being asked in for those cold interviews, and I got really mad. And I hadn't really focused on my gender very much until that point. I got really mad about that, and I had a conversation with my then agent, who gave me some very useful advice at the time. I feel like I've sort of cracked that for myself, but I think there can be a real ceiling, or at least there was. I don't know. I'd like to think it's better. I think there are more women successful in the field now. There certainly was a significant ceiling to a successful career. It was fine as long as you were sort of doing a nice job in not-for-profit theater. But as soon as you wanted to get a job where there was sort of real money potentially involved, either in the fee or the money that you were spending on the gear in the theater, where it was very hard to get your foot in the door.
Yes. I could, this is something we could have a cocktail about and talk about. Because otherwise I don't know if I want... there was a study that the League of Professional Theater Women did about the number of women that were hired to be lighting designers between 2010 and 2016. There were 6 women that had done more than 3 shows off Broadway in New York City during those 6 years.
Wow.
6. So Jane and I were 2 of them. Jennifer Tipton, Nicole Pierce, Jen Shriver, and Natasha Katz, and Jane and me. And we were at under 20% of the hires. So, yes.
I looked at the study, and the year that I had a baby, there was a 50% drop in the number of women designing off-Broadway shows, and that was me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's been a similar thing in regional theater, but my career has been mostly doing 5 million shows in regional theater. But yes, it's infuriating, and it was very hard. And we've always had an almost 50% women base in who we're training. So, and I think that I forget what the union number is, and it might be that it's 60-40.
I think there's a lot more awareness now.
Yeah,
I mean,
there definitely is.
I feel somewhat optimistic about it in the field, and I always want to be really clear that, I have enjoyed working with these extraordinary men over the course of my career. When I hire women on a show like that as a programmer or an associate, it's because I still feel like they need a leg up or a little bit of an extra help getting into the field.
I like your point about you're not sure that there's less women in the industry pursuing the career. It's just that they're not getting
hired
the looks that
right.
others are.
Exactly. It's those moments where you're like, who's the next person? Who's going to do the next thing? And where people are looking around and have not been identifying the women.
Right. But I will say in this season, we have 3 graduates who are since 2017, I think, or maybe I forget when Raza graduated, 2016, who are having their first Broadway show. So the field is definitely, and 2 of them are women.
Yeah.
So the field is definitely opening up, which is great.
Yeah. I think, it's wonderful. The theater field is opening up, this may be hard to sustain in the face of the rest of the world.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As 2 designers who have accomplished success, do you look back over the course of your careers, and is there somebody or like a mentor or somebody that gave you that break that you always sort of look back on and was like, that person was pretty instrumental? And because I'm sure that with the work you guys are doing, that there's now young ladies in the industry that would say this about you. Is there anybody that you look back on that you can think of that was like, that gave you that chance or sort of took you under their wing?
So many people.
Yes, exactly.
I would, 2 thoughts. For young designers, just as a sort of piece of advice, I would say, when people are sitting around and deciding to hire someone they've never hired before, you need 3 people in the room. That's what I always say. You need 3 people in the room who've worked with you in some capacity and like you. You know, they can be the stage manager, the production manager, the person who runs the theater. They can be anybody, but you need 3 people in the room. So it's such a business of creating relationships and sort of accumulating them until you have that quorum.
There's that.
So many people gave me breaks, but I have to shout out for Penny Remsen again, who every time I got a Tony nomination, she'd call me up and she'd be like, "That nomination is mine. Send it to me." And I'm like, "No. When I win the Tony, you can have the beautiful framed certificate because I'll have like the statuette to hold on to." And she'd send me pictures of Justin Townsend's and Ben Stanton's Tony nominations and be like, "Yours should be on the wall with theirs." But she's just been so invested in her students. She calls herself Grandma Penny to all of our children. And educators like that who just give so much to their students and believe in them so strongly, and I think genuinely love them, are such a gift to students.
Well, and Jennifer Tipton, yesterday, I helped her unpack in her new apartment. So we still have relationship over, 40 years. So it's like once you're in the family, you're kind of in the family. So we try to be as supportive of each other as possible. And I teach with Robert Wurzel and Alan Lee Hughes, and that has been one of the greatest collaborations ever for us to be able to develop curriculum and to just be able to talk through the students and what we want to do and how we want to function and how we want them to be and how to use the stuff, etc. It's been the greatest relationship ever.
Well, I'll let you, I know you guys want to get out and see the show, so I'll let you out on this one. If you could go back and meet the younger ML and the younger Jane early on in your career, before you really even got started, and knowing all that you've gone through and all the challenges you faced, what advice would you give? What would be that nugget that you would tell yourself to lead you on your path?
Well, there's a question, I suppose, of my name is Mary Louise in programs and everyone calls me ML, so I'm not sure that was the smartest plan. Although, as Jennifer said, don't hide your gender, so I never did. So that's why I went with the, more obviously feminine one. Just stick to your guns and stick it out. Like, keep doing what interests you. And eventually, hopefully, it'll work out. I didn't assist very much. I ended up doing a million small shows of my own. And there was this turning point where I was supposed to work for Jennifer on Jerome Robbins' Broadway. And I got 4 shows of my own at Juilliard, so it was not even a question for me. And the day I was supposed to call her and tell her I wasn't going to do it, I went to Cooper Hewitt to put it off, and I ran into her for the first and only time in the entire 42 years I've known her at the postcard rack in the Cooper Hewitt gift shop.
Wow.
And she's like, I said, well, if it isn't the one person I'm avoiding in New York City. She said, you have to replace yourself. I said, okay, fine. So sometimes I wonder, that would have been a different path. But am I sad? No, I've always taken the jobs I wanted to take, and it's been great.
That's great advice. I would follow up on that and say, do what you enjoy doing, because what you do with your time begets more of that. So don't do something because you think it's useful to your career, but you don't really enjoy it. Right. Because work begets other work. There's a wonderful attrition in the theater business when people realize, oh man, I'm like, really, this is a rough career. If you're still there when that's over, that's the perseverance is everything, I think, in theater. And then the last thing I would say to young designers is, this is so trite, but it's so true. Be yourself. You are actually hired as a designer for your specific perspective on the universe. Like, how do you see it? How do you think? How do you imagine the world? That's actually what you're hired for. So lean into the things that make you eccentric or unusual or who you are.
That's perfect. I like that. We'll do that. We'll lean into the eccentric and exactly what makes us who we are. So thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
taking the time to join me today,
thank
ML.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jane.
so much.
I really do appreciate it.
And thanks to Roby.
Yeah,
for,
thank you to Roby for all the beautiful lights
all
you
the
make.
wonderful lights.
You
You're
make
very
beautiful
welcome.
lights.
Exactly.
Well, remember, you can find our podcast on all your favorite podcasting platforms. You can also follow us on YouTube. We'll sign off the way we always do. May the light always shine your way. You can make it the Roby way. Have a great day.